Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm back for a few years ago, back in 2016, or yeah, I think it was around 2016, where I did basically a video for Blu-ray, for my Blu-ray collection that I owned. Over the years, I've come to collect a few more, a little more than usual over the years, and so I figure I'd just give an update on new movies that I've collected over the years and movies that I've had in my Blu-ray for a while. So here we go. Now, what I've also done is, and can't really see it here, but there's different like categories that I put them in. I like to put them in like uh, movies that are like in box special packaging. Then you have like these collectible items that they come in, and then there's like their 3D Blu-rays, and then you have over here you got these special edition box sets that come in, or these collector these franchise collecting boxes that come in. So that's how I've categorized them up, and so that's how I divided them into my collection. So let's go ahead and get them started here. So I've got Batman Begins. I got this special tin box that I've got of it. One of my favorite Batman films, and actually one of my favorite trilogies of all time. And then you got The Big Lebowski. Comes in a special booklet that it comes in, and it's got some nice little extra features and stuff that it comes in there too. Has a nice little Blu-ray in there, and it's got like all these different facts and features that it goes over and stuff. So. And then I've got Clockwork Orange, a special booklet collection that's got, much like the one from Big Lebowski, it's got like different pages of material to go over behind the scenes and different facts and things like that, and facts about like Stanley Kubrick and things like that. So it's a nice little Blu-ray set that I've got here. And then I've got Gone Girl, which is one of my favorite films, 2014. It's got a great Blu-ray. It comes with a special packaging where it comes with basically the movie itself, but it also contains this little book that it comes with that is, if you remember in the film how they talk about that there's a book that's inspired by Amy, and with at the time of the Blu-ray's release, they actually included the whole story that it's under, and so I thought it was a nice little special feature that they gave in there. You know, it's a nice little bonus. So, and then we've got. I don't have the rest of these, but I'm going to eventually get them someday. I've got the Hobbit: Unexpected Journey on Blu-ray, and that contains, much like we discussed earlier, it's got like the different booklet sets that goes over special features. It's got some nice little artwork and everything that goes with it. So I thought it was a nice little bonus to have with the actual Blu-ray and DVD, because it comes with a Blu-ray and DVD combo pack. So I'm going to eventually get the other two films in the trilogy, but it's just, I haven't bothered to trying to get it. So, and then we got Inception, which I got this at Best Buy, and it comes with a Blu-ray, DVD, and also the shooting script that was by Christopher Nolan on the set. And I thought it was a nice little way of like telling like the actual. It's like you're reading the script, and you're basically getting the idea of like how everything pulled together and stuff before they even started shooting and everything. And well, before the movie was even released, and it's got some nice little artwork too that it comes with, including these, I think it's in here, yeah, it's around this time, they have these like the different concept arts that's pretty cool, and I just find this really fascinating. It's cool that this movie was able to, like, the ideas that they put into it, and all the thoughts that went into Christopher Nolan was really captured pretty well with these amazing details that he put into it. So, one of my favorite films of all time, or one of my favorite films of the decade, actually, and it's one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films. And then And then I got Man of Steel on Blu-ray, which this contains a tin box, much like I think I got this one at Walmart, I believe, and it comes with these little extra things that came like this collector's thing you can get for Superman. And I personally like Man of Steel, even though it has its flaws and stuff. But I think it's a nice little collector set the way it comes in this little tin box. So. And then we got to one of my all-time favorite horror films growing up, Poltergeist, where it comes with, like we were discussing earlier, it once again contains a little booklet that it comes with, and it's got some nice, background features about the movie and stuff, and about, about all the details surrounding the movie, and it's got nice little behind-the-scenes pictures and things like that, so it's pretty neat. And then we get to this collector's set of The Dark Knight Rises, which I hold dear to me because over there I've actually got a poster of the film that actually matches up here. So it's to me to this day, I don't know what it is, but I have The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises kind of tied together, so I love both of them equally. But I just think that the overall movie itself, I think The Dark Knight holds more. But as far as like there's certain aspects that I prefer over Dark Knight Rises over Dark Knight in some ways, but I don't consider them like better or worse than each other. So I consider them pretty much even. But what's cool about this Blu-ray set is that they contain the Blu-ray and DVD version of it in this little holder thing. But unfortunately, my DVD got borrowed by someone and they never brought it back. So I only just have the Blu-ray and the special features. And then I have the collector's edition of Interstellar, which is much like the other ones with Christopher Nolan. It has a great booklet set that goes over. Well, actually, what it does is it has what's. It has this thing called this little booklet called Beyond Time and Space, and it goes over some nice little concept art about the movie and stuff, and I think it's pretty fascinating. And it also has it's not really, I don't know if it's concept art, but it basically has like behind the scenes things and how it describes like the imagery. It's basically a selection of imagery that goes over the movie and stuff, and it's a nice little bonus. And then it comes with actually this, I know you can't really see it, but this was actually an IMAX film cell that was included with the movie, and when it came out I actually got a chance to see it on IMAX, and I thought it was pretty spectacular seeing it on that bigger format, so it was neat knowing something like this. And then of course this comes with the Blu-ray and DVD set, so you have to open like that. Whoop, see. And then all right, now that's as far as we go. That's as far as we got with the special packaging. Now we're getting to the others right here. Before we get to the main Blu-rays, we got these other ones, which are basically the Blu-ray 3D and the franchise collector sets, which include. We'll start with the 3D. We've got, because I've got a Blu-ray 3D TV, or I got a 3D TV that plays Blu-rays 3D, and I own these for watching them on my TV at home. So I got The Adventures of Tintin on Blu-ray 3D. Comes with Blu-ray and DVD with it as well. Great movie. I really wish they would make a sequel to this someday, but unfortunately they just never got around to it with Spielberg and Peter Jackson. So there's that. But I would really want to see them do a sequel to this if they ever get a chance to. And then we get to James Cameron's Avatar in 3D, which I saw in 3D at the theater when it came out, and it was actually one of the first 3D. It was the second 3D film I ever saw in my life, and it was actually the one that got me into the whole atmosphere 3D. And to this day, I still like the movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in such a while, but I remember still enjoying it, and I am very curious, what James Cameron pulls off with the next one, since he's been working on it for so long. So I'm really interested. And then we get to Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition 3D. It's quite a film that has definitely, has its polarizing reception, and I definitely understandable. To me, I think the Ultimate Cut really helps. It establishes a lot better with the Ultimate Cut, and ever since this cut came out of the movie, it's got me really curious to see what Snyder's vision of Justice League is going to come out with. So there's going to be that looking forward to in the future as well. Because I liked Batman vs Superman better when I watched the Ultimate Edition, and so I'm curious what Justice League will be under Zack Snyder's vision. And then we got one of my favorite comic book films that, to me, I think is the most underrated of the decade, and that's Dredd. And when this movie came out, it was just crazy how it didn't really get much attention when it came, and then it spawned like a huge fan base worldwide. And I saw it in 3D when it came out, and it was mind blowing. And I owned this copy of it. It was pretty great. It's not quite as like spectacular like I thought it would be from the actual theater version, but it comes as close as it could be, like watching at home and all that. So I definitely recommend it. And then we get to Gravity 3D, which is one of my favorite space movies, and one of the best films for me in 2013. And I like how it's got the little, now you can't really see it, but how it basically kind of moves like a, like that. This also comes with a Blu-ray and DVD copy as well. So, like that movie. And then we get to Guardians of the Galaxy, which contains the 3D and Blu-ray version. I have been behind on a lot of my MCU movies that have come out for a while now, so it's going to be a while before I actually collect all of them eventually, but I still hold Guardians of the Galaxy as one of my favorite 3D films in the theater, and I had to own it on Blu-ray 3D, so far, this is the only MCU film that I own that's as far as any Blu-rays, as far as 3D. So, great movie. And then we got one of my favorite films of 2011, and was actually my favorite film of that year, which was Hugo. Which, what do you know? It's a film actually directed by Martin Scorsese, and it was a family film. And to this day, not only is the 3D mesmerizing, but the overall story it helps in so many ways with the 3D. So I couldn't get enough of this movie when it came out, and to this day I still hold as definitely spectacular. So, and very heartwarming too. And then we get to Jurassic World 3D, which I'll be honest, I haven't really, like, I think I may have glanced at the 3D version of this when watching it, but I'd have to really go back and check it out, because I remember watching this at the IMAX theater when it came out, and I remember really enjoying it in 3D. And I'd have to really sit down and try to check the actual 3D version of it out, because I only saw like bits and pieces of it, I think. So, but and then we got one of the films that I hope that they ever actually get around to doing a sequel as well, and one of my favorite underrated films of 2014 as well, which was, it's called, for most fans, I think they prefer the title is Live, Die, Repeat, but it's actually called Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise one, and I think it was not only great in 3D, but also the overall movie itself was it was fantastic. It's one of my favorite Tom Cruise films. And it's also, I think it's up there right now as my favorite Emily Blunt, as my favorite movie featuring Emily Blunt. So, then we got, believe it or not, this was actually the first film I saw in 3D, which was My Bloody Valentine 3D. 3D isn't too bad, but it's definitely not as mesmerizing as, say, the original version in theaters, because of quality at home and everything. But I still think it's a fun ride. It's definitely kind of flawed, but it's still, I think, a fun slasher film. And then we got another film that I thought was really fun when it came out in 2010, which was Piranha 3D. I haven't seen the sequel, but I can only imagine that one I heard was pretty bad, so I'll probably check out eventually, but I've only just seen this one, and this is, and I've seen the original too, the one from the '70s. So, and I thought the 3D was pretty fun in this one too. And then we get to Polar Express 3D, which I'll be honest, out of the 3D films that I've seen, this is one that is one of my least favorite 3Ds because I don't think the 3D really held up that much watching at home. So there are times when I'm watching it, it is one of those few occasions where the 3D I think is just kind of more not really up to par, like that it should be, that I'm thinking it as it would be if I was watching like some other 3D movies. So I kind of just prefer watching it in 2D at sometimes. So on rare occasions, I'll probably put in the 3D just for trying to get the effect out of it. It's just that I just don't really feel it as much when I'm like watching it at home. So, you know, but it is a good movie though that I enjoy. Then we get controversial one, Prometheus, a film that to this day has gotten a lot of once again, it's a film that's gotten a lot of polarizing reception. A lot of people didn't like it the way it reflected with being a prequel to Alien, which I understand. You know, as its own movie, believe it or not, I actually think it actually helped a lot better because I give Ridley Scott a lot more ambition of what he was going for, trying to do an expanded universe of the Alien franchise. And the 3D with this was really awesome, and to this day I still couldn't get enough of it, and I was glad to own it on Blu-ray 3D. So, and then we get to, I'll admit, I like the Resident Evil franchise overall. They are flawed, don't get me wrong, the live-action films, but to their credit, I don't think they're that bad as much as people said until we get to some of them. I will agree. Afterlife and even the final chapter were pretty bad, but I actually kind of have a soft spot for this one, the Resident Evil Retribution. I think out of the franchise, this is the one, I think, since the second movie, where they were pretty much, you know, trying to rely more like the games and actually kind of felt like the games in a way. And I appreciate them trying to, you know, and I think the 3D really helped a lot better in this one. And I thought it was a lot of fun. So, and then we get to a film that, as you can see from the poster there, Suicide Squad. I gotta admit, it's definitely flawed, but I actually I don't mind it too much. I think it's a lot of fun. In fact, I think it's one of the most of the entertaining of the DC Extended Universe films that I like, and I know I'm probably one of the few that enjoys it, but I got a kick out of it, and I to this day have quite a lot of fun with it, and I do own the Blu-ray 3D version of it. And I appreciate also that they have an extended version of the film that kind of adds some things to it, and I am still curious what David Ayer would bring out if they ever release his cut. So I enjoy the film, but I can understand a lot of those that don't. So fair enough. And then we get to a very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas, which is the third film in the Harold and Kumar franchise that I enjoyed. I saw it in theaters when it came out in 3D, and I had a blast with it, and seeing it at home, it's a lot of fun. I can't get enough of these movies. I wasn't like a huge fan of Guatemala Bay, but I still thought that one was still funny. So I would love to see them do another one if they ever get around to it, you know. So now we got this one, which I'll admit, this is probably the only Blu-ray 3D that I will ever actually own that I honestly just bought only because I wanted to watch the unrated version, and that's The Wolverine. The only reason I bought the 3D version of this was because it came with the Blu-ray set that you have to buy with the Unleashed Extended Edition. And so I've seen bits of the Blu-ray 3D version, and I'll be honest, it didn't look that good. And I saw the film when it came out in regular 2D when I watched it in theaters. So I really only bought this movie just because I wanted to watch the unrated version. So, and I still actually like The Wolverine. So then we get to, now we're going to start into the regular Blu-rays and start going off of them in alphabetical order. So we have 300, which is which was actually the film that got me really actually seen. Well, it wasn't the first film I seen from Zack Snyder because I saw Dawn of the Dead first, but it was the film that got me like really into his vision as a visionary director, so to speak. And I think that even to this day, looking at it, it's a film that, given to what it is, I appreciate that he stuck to his grounds with trying to recreate the stuff with Frank Miller's graphic novels and everything, and I think that it's definitely one of the most stylized films of the 2000s that took that level with it, and I think it's actually a lot of it's really I think it was a really good film. So, and then we got the sequel slash prequel, 300: Rise of an Empire, which not as good as 300, but I still think it had some good stuff in it. Mainly, I like the stuff with Eva Green and some other stuff they expand that they kind of elaborate on with the first 300, especially with the backstory of Xerxes and stuff. So there's some things I like about it, but it's not like up to par with the first one. So, and then we get to a film I actually kind of thought was underrated when it came out, which was 3 Days to Kill. And this was actually one of my, I thought it was really good, throwback to some, like those movies. It was kind of film like Taken in a way, but it was actually, I thought, was a lot of great fun. It was cool seeing Kevin Costner in an action movie again. So I thought this one was pretty good. And then we get to, before we get into the rest of them, though, I forgot to go over these. I forgot my franchise collection. So we got the Harry Potter collection, which contains the first all 8 Harry Potter films. I liked all the films. The one I think I go to the most, as far as my most favorite, is probably Prisoner of Azkaban. I think my go-to would be Prisoner of Azkaban, and then my second favorite would be probably Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think those two alone are like my go-tos as far as the overall franchise, but the rest of them are still pretty good. I enjoy them. So, and then we get to the remake of The Hills Have Eyes from 2006. This is actually a film that I actually prefer a little over the original in some way, even though I enjoy the original film. And then the second one, it's not as good, not nowhere as good as the first one, but it still has its moments that I like, and I don't mind it too much. So, and then we got the Jurassic Park trilogy, as it was originally, be. It's got a nice little booklet set that it comes with, and then it's got like it's got like a double thing, which I don't really know why they did this, because it's just a slip cover that goes over the Blu-ray, and it comes with the Blu-ray and then all 3 movies of the films, and it's got some nice little sleeve that it comes on. So, love these movies. I'm not really too big on the third film, but I still don't mind it too much. It's just, it's my least favorite of the series, but it wasn't too bad. And then we get to the Mission Impossible franchise, which contains all the first 5 movies. This one, it basically has the first 5 movies alone. Like, I think out of all of them, the only one that I really don't like is actually that I care for the least is the second film. But I still enjoy the rest of them, though. I still think even 2 has its own merits. It's just not as good as the other ones. But it's a great set. I still need to collect Fallout sometime. And then we have the original Planet of the Apes collection, which contains the original films, and you get to have tons and tons of Blu-ray extras on this one, and it comes with the Planet of the Apes, and it's got also the Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and then you got Escape, and then you got Conquest and Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which I haven't fully watched Battles. That's the only one I haven't really fully watched of, but what's cool about this set is that it comes also with special pictures or little photo things that they come with that you can basically form the current trilogy under, which I really enjoyed the newer films as well, which I'm going to eventually own on Blu-ray too. So you get Caesar when he's young, and then you got in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes when he's got
when he's rising up, and then you got the war when it's in War of the Planet of the Apes. So, and then they have like these cool little pamphlets that are on the back right here. See, yeah, I think these are pretty cool to collect these when owning this set. No, you can't see it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I am curious about the next films, because this is one of those kind of franchises that I honestly don't think probably needs another film out of the series. I mean, because unless they start, you know, doing something a little different and having to just remake the original Planet of the Apes films. Just hope they don't do what Tim Burton did with the Planet of the Apes remake in 2001, you know? So yeah. And then we got the Star Trek The Next Generation motion picture collection on Blu-ray, which contains all the films on the original the Next Generation the Next Generation films. You got Star Trek Generations, which yeah, it wasn't that great, but I thought it was doable, even though we could have seen a better like send off for Captain Kirk, you know, but you know. Then we got Star Trek First Contact, which is my favorite of the entire Next Generation films. And then you got Insurrection, which feels more like an extended of the TV series, so it's not bad. It's just, you know, it's kind of there. Nemesis, I actually didn't mind too much. It's got its problems, but for an early appearance for Tom Hardy, I actually didn't think he was that bad as the villain. I think he was pretty good. So, and you got this additional DVD. It's called Evolutions, which, you know, captures the moments in Star Trek and things like that. So, yep. And then we get to the Underworld trilogy, which is a series that I still am kind of slacking on, because I don't have the last movie, but I've got the first four. Comes with the first Underworld, Underworld, and then you got Underworld Evolution, and then you got Rise of the Lycans. And then it comes with this bonus DVD that's basically like an anime version called Endless War, which is actually a kind of a cool little gap between Evolution and Awakening. So I like the movies, but I can say that Rise of the Lycans is probably my least favorite of the entire franchise, but I don't think it was too bad, you know. Alright. And now we're going to get to the rest of the ones that are in alphabetical order here. So let's go ahead and get these. Alright, and then we get to Casino Royale, which is it's up there with one of my favorite James Bond films, and it was it was a good reboot to kind of restart the franchise in a fresh new way. So I thought it was pretty good. Then you got Quantum of Solace, which I'm not really the biggest fan of. I thought it was a step down compared to Casino Royale. It felt more like a Jason Bourne movie than it did a James Bond movie. And then you got Skyfall, which is probably up there as far as my favorite, one of my absolute favorites of 007, and it's definitely, I think, my favorite of the Daniel Craig films. So I still to this day need to get Spectre and a lot of the other James Bond films. So eventually I'll get the rest of them when I get the chance to. And then I've got American Gangster, really good. I enjoyed a really good Ridley Scott film. And then you got American Hustle. And then we got Annihilation, which is one of the best movies of 2018 for me. and one of my favorite performances from Natalie Portman. And then we got one of the classic Coen brothers, Fargo. Fast and the Furious, the original. Too Fast, Too Furious. Fast and Furious. I don't have the third film, but I'll eventually get it whenever I decide to get all the rest of the movies, because I don't have 7, 8, Hobbs and Shaw, or 3, or Tokyo Drift. So there's some I'm missing, but I'll eventually get them when I can. And then we got Fast 5, which was up there as one of my favorites of the series. And then Fast 6, which was also even more up there with the series for me. And then Fight Club, one of my favorite films of all time, and one I can go to every single rewatch. Like, as far as rewatchability, this is my go-to a lot of the time, besides American Psycho. So then we got the remake of The Fly from 1986, and I like this little cover that they have with it. It's like a special that they had at Best Buy when I got it. See. Then we have, I don't own the first one, and I'll be honest, I didn't really care for the first one, but in my opinion, I didn't mind the second one too much, and that's Ghost Rider with a Vengeance. I know a lot of people don't like this one. I can understand. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I actually didn't mind it too much. Then we have The Grey, one of my favorite Liam Neeson movies. Then we have Halloween, the original from John Carpenter, one of my favorite slasher films of all time. The film that basically redefined the one that brought slasher into the mainstream. Into the big mainstream that we would see with Friday the 13th and all that. And then the original Halloween 2, which is a shame because I really wish the newer film from 2018 would have included this movie's continuity, because if you're going to do a continuation of the original films, I think the whole brother-sister thing would really help with the movie. And it would also help with what Laurie went through in the hospital. So, but that's just me. And then we have Baby Driver, Tim Burton's Batman from 1989, Batman Assault on Arkham, which is the tie-in to the Arkham video game series, which is actually a lot of fun, and it actually kind of got me introduced to the Suicide Squad before the live-action film. And then we have Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, the deluxe edition, which contains both parts, and it's basically the precursor. It's in a way, it's based on the Frank Miller story that in a way was what Batman vs Superman tried to be from, and it used inspiration from that novel from it, with it being an older Batman and everything. But I think this animated film, really is one of DC's best, and it's definitely the one that probably went the most the most personal story for Batman, and with him basically living the retirement life and things like that. And it's definitely the most the most brutal from what I've seen so far. So. And then we got Black Mass, which I think for me, I think Johnny Depp's last great film I think he was in, for the time being, until we see him in probably doing some more serious stuff like this again. Because I think that whenever he plays these type of real life gangster or these type of real life criminal type roles that he plays, I think he really shines, and he really proved that with movies like Blow and Black Mass, and even Public Enemies. So, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is one of the most beautiful films of the 90s, and definitely the most mesmerizing and poetic and very beautiful looking vampire films I've ever seen. Captain America: The First Avenger. I don't have the rest of the Captain America films, unfortunately, but I will eventually with them. Really enjoyed this film. Then we get to Chronicle, which, as you've seen our review that we did of Capone, this was the film that Josh Trank did that basically made him get into Hollywood, and it's the same that we won't probably see, that he hasn't reached the level of greats since this movie. You know, I think the guy has potential to go for it, but he just really, you know, I think really needs to work on better like movies to go for, you know. Then we get to The Condemned, which is another guilty pleasure of mine. I think that it's definitely a film I go to when I think of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Even though there's been some other films I've seen Stone Cold in that I kind of prefer over this one, including the Expendables and things like that. But this one I think is probably my go-to as far as him, you know, straight on main role, so to speak. And I think he really carried this film. Then we get to The Conjuring, one of my favorite horror films of the decade and of the 2010s, and I still to this day need to own the second one, and it's definitely the one that really put the whole supernatural element going back to that whole old school 70s type vibe in a really great way that I enjoyed. So then we get to Contagion, which for those of you who are, since this in a way basically predicted what we're in now with the whole pandemic that we're experiencing, this film really, I think, holds the ground as being like in a very grounded and realistic level as far as like, you know, being sick, having to wash your hands and things like that. I hope everyone stays safe out there, and this movie is definitely one to take notes from. If you ever get a chance to check it out, I do highly recommend it. And then we get to Curse of Chucky, and this was the one that I actually got back, that basically brought Chucky back into the more like ways of being more scarier again, and I think that this was a pretty good solid comeback for him. Then we get to, oh wait, I already went to that one, sorry. Then we get to The Dark Knight, one of my all-time favorite superhero films, and my tied up there with Dark Knight Rises as my favorite Batman film. And it's definitely the film that I go to when it comes to like straight on, if I want to see Batman in a more realistic setting, this is the one. This and Dark Knight Rises are the ones I'll go to. And it's also what to me is the most defining portrayal of the Joker, besides, we'll get to him later, besides Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, of who's played the character like so great. So rest in peace, Heath Ledger, one of my all-time favorite comic book films, and one of my all-time favorite movies as well. And then we get to one of the last great vampire flicks. To this day, I still get a kick out of, and I wish we would see more vampire movies, but unfortunately this is the most recent one I can think of that, you know, kept it in a more like serious type of way, which was Daybreakers. And this movie, I think, was a great, you know, it was a great fun ride with seeing, basically doing a whole futuristic setting of vampires and shit, and being able to like basically find a cure for vampires for the first time, which I thought was pretty unique. So then we get to Daylight, one of my favorite disaster films of the 90s. Deadpool, comes a little pony cover there. Then we get to The First Death Race with Jason Statham. I haven't seen the rest of the Death Race movies, and I probably won't, because I feel like The First Death Race is a movie I think kind of just stands its ground, and it's not really, it's definitely has its flaws to it, but I don't think it was, I thought it was a lot of fun. Then we got one of my favorite films of 2016, Deepwater Horizon. And yes, I am guilty of it. I didn't mind it too much. Dumb and Dumber 2. one of my favorite Jim Carrey films, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Expendables, The Expendables Extended Director's Cut, The Expendables 2, The Expendables 3, which is, yeah, it's my least favorite of the series, and it was quite a disappointment, but I still own it because it has its moments. The Hateful Eight, one of Tarantino's, not one of his like greatest films, but still pretty worthwhile, and it's definitely quite a lot of definitely pretty. I thought it was pretty outstanding. Hell or High Water, Hercules, the Dwayne Johnson version. Hocus Pocus, classic, or one of the best cult classics of the 90s. Homefront, which, believe it or not, this is actually a film that I actually consider one of the most like underrated movies I've seen, because with this one, it was cool seeing Jason Statham playing more of a father role in this one, and plus, it was great seeing James Franco playing a more like, you know, like unhinged, like villain type role where he's basically playing a redneck and everything. And I thought it was a pretty great, solid flick for it. In fact, what's interesting was that Sylvester Stallone actually wrote the script for this, so it was cool that. So I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. And then we got Hot Tub Time Machine, one of the best raunchy comedies of the 2010s that I highly enjoyed. Still haven't owned the second one, but I've seen the second one and I didn't think it was too bad. Then we got the Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and also the first Hunger Games in a dual pack. I still need to get the rest of them, but I'll eventually get to them. Then we got The Incredible Hulk. Not one of the best MCU films I've seen, but I still think it wasn't too bad. It's just that it's not really my go-to when it comes to like rewatchability, so to speak. So this is one that is kind of the more like forgettable ones that I've seen. So Interview with the Vampire, one of my favorite vampire films of all time, and one of my favorite Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt movies. First Iron Man, the movie that started the whole MCU, and to this day, it definitely holds its ground. It basically redefined the level of how we see Marvel films, and it's a shame we won't see. You know, it's crazy how we've come a long way with seeing, you know, starting from Iron Man up until Avengers Endgame and all that, you know, over the years. So it's definitely a great film. Then we get to the film that, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, Iron Man 2 I don't really find that good. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but it's just that it's one of my lesser favorites because I feel like they crammed like too much in there. But I still thought it wasn't too bad. So, to be honest, I kind of prefer Iron Man 3 a little over 2 because there was things about it that I enjoyed more with it, and even though I get the whole thing with the Mandarin, I still think that the film overall was actually pretty solid. So I thought it was a good cap off for the trilogy that they did. So then we got I'd probably say it's probably my most like, I think maybe possibly my favorite Oliver Stone film, and that's going to be JFK. I think this film, like, is not only the dialogue is so great and so rewatchable, but it has a lot of, you know, so much to it, so much energy, so much everything that the movie goes across that makes you really question a lot of the conspiracy theories they kind of bring up in a way. And I don't get into politics much, but the things that they bring up I think are very interesting. So about, you know, the conspiracy theories and stuff. So And then we got John Wick, the film that basically made brought Keanu Reeves back into the spotlight again, and put him into the household name again as a action guy, and as a a great actor, as a really good actor when he's really on his level and doing the stuff that he's best with. And I thought this was a very great and pretty wonderful. It's just everything I would expect out of not only an action film, but also capturing a lot of a good story to capture as well. So it was able to hold both worlds of it. So now we're going to start from the bottom below it right here. All right. Move these here. Okay, now back here, I know it's hard to see, back there we have the rest of the Blu-rays that I have that were in front of the other ones. So we got John Wick 2, one of the best. Not only was I thought it was better than the first one, but it was a great way of expanding upon the universe of the first movie, and I can't get enough of these movies, as I've always stated. And then we got, I don't have John Wick Chapter 3 unfortunately yet, so I need to still get it. So I'll get it sometime soon. And then I got Joker, one of the best movies of last year, and definitely one of the best DC's done in quite a long time. Can't express words how much I love this movie a lot. And to me, the second most best performance as the Joker of all time, in my opinion. And then we got Jumanji, classic. I don't have the other two movies that have come out, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, and Jumanji, The Next Level. I've seen Welcome to the Jungle, which we did a review on. I didn't think it was too bad, but I haven't seen the new one, so that's why I still haven't seen yet. So, and then we got Killer Elite, which is another very underrated film that I enjoyed from 2011. I thought it was quite solid, especially them. I thought Jason Statham and Clive Owen had great chemistry, and Robert De Niro was a blast to see in this movie too. So it's definitely quite an underrated flick for me. Then we got one of my other favorite films of 2012, which was Killer Joe. It's from the last recent film that I believe William Friedkin has actually done, at least most recently. I don't know if he's done any other movies, but when I saw this movie, I was like enthralled, because this is, to me, I think the movie because I haven't seen The Lincoln Lawyer. This was the first movie I seen that really got me really into seeing McConaughey like growing really as an actor, like becoming more serious and stuff. And this movie really defined him. And I couldn't get enough of it. Not only was it really just kind of disturbing in some parts, but also just like it was funny as shit too in some scenes. So it's definitely worthwhile. And we got a movie I grew up with, the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. A film that when I was a kid I wasn't really as scared much of, because I was scared of clowns growing up, but the Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I was more like having fun with it than I was with something like It, the miniseries from the 90s. So this is one that I can still always go back to and just have a good time with. Then we got one of the best, most recent Christmas films that I actually, Christmas horror films that I actually quite enjoyed in most recent years, which is Krampus. And while it could have done a lot better in some aspects, I still thought that the novelty of them doing like a whole Christmas setting and doing like a kind of taking an angle similar to like Home Alone and do a Gremlins type of feel, I thought really worked. And I thought it was also cool with them relying on practical effects in some scenes, and it had a great atmosphere surrounding it with the way that they set up all this the setting and the whole like winter look that they go for. So, and Krampus himself I thought was pretty creepy too. So, and then we got Leon the Professional, Probably this is definitely my favorite Luc Besson movie growing up. Or I'm sorry, of as far as my go-to. My other go-to is The Fifth Element, which I own on DVD. But this one, I think it's very like it's a more like personal type of film that I can see. It just has so many layers with the chemistry surrounding with Leon and Matilda and everything. And while it can be off-putting from the way it's portrayed in some from the way it is, which I can agree, it definitely feels very kind of hard to watch nowadays from it. I still thought the overall movie itself is still great, and this is my favorite performance. Honestly, this is probably it's up there in my top 3 favorite performances of Gary Oldman. So this is definitely one of the best movies of the 90s. And then my favorite X-Men movie, Logan. A film that finally got us to see basically what Logan can do, being the ultimate, being not only a great personal story with him having to actually pretty much on the cusp of dying with him and Xavier on the run and encountering X-23, but it's just I like the whole kind of different feel it took as far as comic book films, and I really hope that someday we can get more different movies more comic movies that are on this kind of level, so to speak. And it's while it would be cool to see Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine again, I still think that, to me, if you would have told me this would have ended the franchise, this would have been a great fucking ending for that series, not Dark Phoenix. So I don't own Dark Phoenix, and I probably will eventually, just for collector's purposes, but I think if this should have ended the entire X-Men franchise to me. So then we got Lone Survivor, one of my favorite war films of the decade, and definitely I think I think it might be possibly my favorite Peter Berg film. So and then we got Looper. The film that got me into Rian Johnson as director, which I'll get to his other film here later on. But let's say that this was also, I think, one of Bruce Willis's last great movies, because this actually showed that he was actually caring at that point when he was doing movies still. And so I wish he would come back and do more movies like this and actually, show more of his, side. Because I liked Bruce Willis in Glass, but I haven't seen Death Wish. But you get my idea. You get what I mean. Like he was at least at that point still caring of doing movies around that time. So and this movie I think really holds up as a very solid sci-fi flick. Then we get to The Lost Boys, one of my favorite vampire films of all time. Definitely a classic, and it to this day holds as. It's also my favorite of the two Corey's films, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim together. So, and then I do not have the second movie because I flat out refuse to own that movie unless I had it for either a cheap price or if someone gave it to me for free or something. Okay, I would own the second one, The Tribe. I do, however, have the third one called Lost Boys of Thirst, because to be honest, even though it's not up par with the first movie, it's still, I still thought it was a solid sequel, and it's definitely showed that they at least try to do something different with the series. So I actually didn't mind this one. And then we got another underrated film that I still hold as quite a lot of fun, Lucky Number 11, which has quite a big cast in that one too, especially with Bruce Willis. So this one was a lot of fun. And then you got Machete. One of the best probably Robert Rodriguez's last great movie he did, at least for the time being. I don't own Machete Kills, but eventually I might get it out of collector's purposes, and I didn't mind that one too much. It's just that it just wasn't up to par with this one. I think this was a great way of them doing the whole grindhouse thing and stuff. So, and then if people ask me what my favorite movie of all time is, it's Magnolia. This is the film I go to when it comes to if I have so much relatableness, and when I think of rain, I always think of this movie. And when I always think of movies that deal with like chance and like deal with, you know, having to deal with emotion and breakdown and things like that, this is one I definitely go to. And it's definitely my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film next to Boogie Nights. So, highly love this movie. Then we got Marvel's The Avengers, the movie that basically changed the game as far as like superhero films, as far as like doing crossovers and stuff for the first time. And I still think it holds up, but I don't think it quite holds up like it used to be in some ways, because I feel like since the later films started doing more with their villains and stuff, looking back on it, I just felt like the only thing I can see that kind of doesn't have like whole much of a stake is with having Loki as the main villain. But for a good starter, it still really worked, and I thought it was a very, very great movie. I still have to get the other ones though on Blu-ray, so my MCU collection will be coming in the future eventually. And then we got Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. I finally got a chance to watch this one, and I'll be honest, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty bleak and pretty, you know, gritty, you know, crime thriller. And it was weird because in this one you're dealing with more of like Harvey Keitel's character in this than you are with Robert De Niro's character. So it was kind of cool that they had a good like balance between both of them, and it just had a like really, you know, outstanding filmmaking altogether. And it was pretty. It had also a pretty bleak ending too. So definitely I highly recommend that one. And then we get to Men in Black 3 on Blu-ray and DVD. This, to me, I think was probably the last good one. That probably, if you would have told me that this could have been just a trilogy, I think this could have really worked, because this actually, I think, was pretty solid. And while I didn't mind 2 as much, I just felt like 3, I think, really upped the game. And I liked the way that they were kind of like doing more of a, going back to doing like tie-ins to the first movie again and stuff like that with surrounding Will Smith's character. So I thought that was a pretty good addition, and plus it was cool them like doing the whole time travel thing. So highly recommend that one too. Then we get to one of my favorites of 2016 that surprisingly didn't do too well in theaters, but I thought it was quite a lot of fucking fun, and that was The Nice Guys. The time when Shane Black, you know, was trying to come back and doing his usual thing in Hollywood and doing more of his traditional stuff that he's known for. And this one, to me, I think really deserves a sequel. And I really hope that he comes back and does a sequel along with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling coming back, because this was not only a great throwback to 70s, you know, cop movies, buddy cop movies, but it was also it was a great like just addition, because the dialogue is so snappy and everything, and it's an overall outstanding movie. So, and then we get to one of my also personal favorites, is Nightcrawler from 2014, which is actually it's actually one of the last films that featured Bill Paxton, may he rest in peace. And this, to me, it's for me the only thing that's criminal is that they didn't nominate Jake Gyllenhaal for best actor in this film, because I think that he really should have got at least nominated, because this performance of his was so like haunting, and it was just so like legendary. I couldn't take my eyes off the guy when I was watching it, and he starts to losing it at playing the sociopath, and it's just the way that he goes through everything is just so fascinating to watch. So highly recommend that one too. And then we get to one of my other favorites, Coen Brothers films, The No Country for Old Men, which, yeah, I can understand the divided attention on the ending, and I'll admit it's a film that I have to like really like study with and like really like grasp a lot of the interpretations with the movie, because I will admit the first time I watched the movie, the ending really did throw me off, the way it was kind of building upon things and the way it was kind of leading up to its third act. But I think that it's kind of grown on me for over the years, where I start to really fully grasp what they were going for. So really enjoyed this film a lot, and can't describe how much I was on fucking the edge every time I watch it. You know, Javier Bardem plays one of the best villains of the decade, of the 2000s. And then we got a film that sorry. A film that one of my other like personal favorites of Liam Neeson, Nonstop. Pretty good thriller type movie that's set on a plane. You know, kind of reminds me of that movie Flight Plan a little bit, with the way they're kind of, you know, taking the whole mystery kind of angle approach and everything. So I thought it was a really solid movie. And then we get to Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America, a epic gangster film that went through actual various cuts when it came out, and it's definitely the only film that it's the first film I've ever seen of Sergio Leone, so I haven't seen any of his other films, so I can't describe enough like how much I really admire this film a lot. It was not only a great ambitious epic crime drama like that was on the ranks of like Godfather and all them, but it was also a film that, you know, just shows a lot of the struggles in life of basically not the struggles, but the life of crime set in New York, and it just shows, you know, how much you see the time period that it goes with De Niro's character. That's in a way makes a great double feature with The Irishman, because it's very similar as far as structure and like, you know, having to flip flop between different time periods, and they're both being gangster movies. So do highly enjoy this one. Then we get to one of my other personal favorites of 2019, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. One of Tarantino's best. It just, like we said in our review, it shows he still is one of the reasons why I admire him as a filmmaker. You know, he doesn't hold back. It's basically his love letter to Hollywood, and why he loves, you know, making movies and stuff, and I highly enjoy it. We got Outbreak. Really good, solid medical drama movie. It takes more of an action route than, say, something like Contagion does, but it's definitely a film that it's good to watch because of, you know, the what if scenario of what could happen. It really makes you wonder if something like this, like if there was an actual like virus that did spread like this to where it was creating chaos and everything. It's something that, while it's not on the most realistic level in the movie, it still makes you kind of, you know, terrified of what could happen. And I think the movie has a really solid way of, you know, defining that and being able to really pinpoint, you know, it's like on a ticking time bomb that they have to, you know, rely on and everything. And a really great cast too with it. Then we get to one of my other movies that I have actually grown a lot with, and I've actually liked a lot more over the years. And even since I first watched it, I've actually enjoyed it every single time I watch it. It's gotten better, which is Out of the Furnace, which has one of my favorite performances from Christian Bale, and it's definitely has a great cast too. And it's definitely a slow burner, but it still just shows a lot of one man's redemption basically, and everything. So highly enjoyed the movie. And then we get to one of my other favorites from Michael Bay that got controversy, but I still fucking love the movie, and that's Pain and Gain. Really great movie. Then we get to Pirates of the Caribbean Black Pearl. The best of the franchise for sure, but it's definitely a great starter of the series. It was basically redefined the whole pirate genre, and I hope to see Johnny come back in another movie in the future, playing Jack Sparrow again. So then we get to Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, which not quite as big on this one, but I still think it was a pretty solid sequel. It definitely has some issues here and there, but it's not too bad. But then this one, believe it or not, At World's End, I actually think if it would have just, you know, been as just a trilogy, it probably could have worked on that level, because I liked the scope they went with, and I liked how they were trying to really, you know, carry that whole epic level and trying to do like the whole, you know, give it on a great epic conclusion. Now, there's a lot of things that they probably could have cut out, like the whole stuff with, you know, Chow Yun-Fat's character and everything, but in some of the other subplots, but I still think the scope and everything and the whole story, the way that they progress with it, I think really carried it a lot with it, and I thought it really worked as a into the trilogy at that time. And then got On Stranger Tides, which I'll admit I like the movie, but I can admit it does have a lot more problems than usual, and it's definitely one that it's kind of one that it's kind of mostly kind of the more like forgettable ones that I remember, because it feels a lot more like, well, I don't know how to describe it, but it just doesn't have like on that par level as say the first one or even the others, even on the other ones have. So, you know. And then we've got Poltergeist 2, which I remember growing up, and this one actually was pretty creepy. It's been a whole long time I've seen it, but I remember quite enjoying it. Poltergeist 3, which I'll be honest, I haven't even fully watched this one, so this is actually one that I still to this day still need to finish after. So then we got another one of the other best movies to me of 2013, which was Prisoners, and this to me also got me introduced to the director Denis Villeneuve. Sorry if I can't pronounce his name. I'm really excited for his next film with Dune as well. So. Then we got one of the other film that I mentioned earlier with Public Enemy, with Johnny Depp under Public Enemies, where he plays John Dillinger, and yeah, it's definitely one of it's definitely one of Michael Mann's. I think it's not like in my top. I mean, it's definitely one of. It's not probably his greatest, but it's still I think a very solid film for him, and I thought it was a good unique experiment for them using like HD cameras for the first time to give it that whole gritty aspect for it. So I highly enjoyed it. Then we get one of my favorite not only martial arts action films international action films of all time, but also the film that basically put it made it to where it got kind of comparisons with Dread as far as plot, but it still worked in a very unique way, and that's The Raid Redemption. And I mean, if you want a fucking balls to the wall like movie that just goes for it, and they're fucking delivering so much action all in one setting on this high-rise building and stuff, this is definitely a movie to watch. And then the same can be said with the second one, The Raid 2. It's not as like, well, it's a lot longer than the first one because they do a lot more story elements, and I think that the movie actually, in a way, actually tops the first one as far as not only story, but also being able to give us a lot more with the whole, like, the action and everything. So I highly enjoyed the Raid 2. I wish they would do a third one. And then we get to Red, which this was a lot of fun. I haven't seen the second one, so I don't own that one. But I thought it was a really good one, and it was kind of like it was like the kind of if you took like the retirement home kind of people like living in retirement homes and turn them into the Expendables kind of thing. So it's kind of like that. It was a lot of fun. And then you got one of my favorite other movies from 2015, which is The Revenant. Definitely one of the most best performances from Leonardo DiCaprio and also from Tom Hardy, and one of the best survival films of all time for me. So then we got Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which I still remember fondly enjoying growing up with it. Really enjoying the movie a lot, and it's definitely my go-to when it comes to Robin Hood. Even though there's been some countless other ones, this is the one I fondly remember the most with growing up. And then we got the original RoboCop, which still to this day holds up as one of probably my favorite Paul Verhoeven films. And it's definitely a film that is kind of ahead of its time too, with the whole like crime going on in like Detroit and everything and things like that. And it's just it's a very, I like the whole satire feel they have, because they actually had some things that were kind of ahead of their time with the whole you know, things, commentary on stuff, and the commercials were fun and everything. So, you know. Then we have Rogue One, a Star Wars story. A lot of it's I thought it was pretty good. It definitely took a different token than the way that we're used to with Star Wars, with doing a whole like mercenary, well, like kind of a mercenary type of point of view, and it worked pretty good as a war film. So I highly enjoyed it. Then we got Sabotage, which again was from director David Ayer, which I highly enjoyed. Which it was kind of weird because it basically took like a it was like if you took Predator and made them and you basically made it was like doing Predator, but you have like doing the cartel version of it, where you have kind of, because you got Arnold and his team and stuff, so it's like, you know, doing that kind of level. So, and they're all being hunted out by someone, so there's that. And then you got Safe, which I thought was a really damn good movie from Jason Statham. Then you got Safe House, which I've only seen this movie once, so I barely remember it. I remember it being not too bad though. So Scream 4, which is to this day the last film Wes Craven directed. Not as well, I know I've heard it's not as great as, it's not as good as the other ones, but I still thought it was a solid comeback for as far as revitalizing the franchise again and trying to, you know, continue on with it and give us like a whole spin on the whole reboots kind of feel that they're going for. And I thought it worked a little better than 3 did, even though there was things that I preferred over in 3 over at 4. So, you know. Then we got Shoot 'Em Up, a very solid Bugs Bunny type live action version of it. So if you took that character and made him into a live action format and made it all balls to the wall, like gore, fun, bloody time. So, and we got going back to Martin Scorsese, another one, Shutter Island. This one, to me, I think is one of the best examples of how you do a psychological thriller right, and I loved a lot of the twists and turns the movie goes with too. And it's definitely it's a chiller. It definitely has a lot of great, not only great twists and turns, but also the way that it pulls with you on where the movie takes you on those different places that you're basically experiencing when you have DiCaprio looking around the whole island and stuff. So definitely enjoyed it. Then we got Sicario. I definitely will admit that this one to me is one of the best prime examples of, you know, doing the whole cartel thing like in film and everything, and done it in a very gritty and realistic way that I couldn't get enough of. Like, this movie gave me on the fucking edge. Like, it was like a snake kind of creeping up on you. I don't have the sequel yet, but I'll get to it eventually. Because I've seen it. I actually enjoyed the second one too, but I'd still prefer the first one, even though the second one I thought was pretty good that they did some things with. So, then we get Sinister. And this one, to me, I think what really holds the most disturbing level is the parts with the whole the homemade camera footage that they do in Cerns when Ethan Hawke is looking through the camera footage and stuff. And yeah, it was pretty creepy. And then we get to Solo, a Star Wars story, which out of the most recent Star Wars films, I'll be honest, this is my least favorite of the most recent ones that they've done. But I still don't think it was bad. It was just, you know, it just wasn't like, to me, to begin with, I don't think it was really a story that really needed to be told for Han Solo. I think if you would have took more of a better direction probably, and maybe used the original guys, Phil Lord and Lord and Miller, and had those guys do it originally, I think it probably would have brought us some more, like, you know, fun type of adventure. But given for what it is, it wasn't too bad. It just could have been a whole lot better, you know. And we get to Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not my favorite of the Spider-Man movies. It's probably my second favorite, and then I would probably have, no, I would say I would say this is now my third favorite, since Far From Home is now my second favorite. But I thought this was a pretty good way of bringing the character, doing his own take, and following his appearance from Civil War. So then we get to Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. It's definitely one of the most visually gothic and most wonderful looking films of Tim Burton that I've seen of his, and I couldn't get enough of the production design alone. And I always revisit this every October, so it's definitely one of my other go-tos. Then we get to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film that, believe it or not, I haven't fully finished. So it's definitely one that I need to fully watch just so I can grasp of the, how this film has been talked about as being one of the greatest films of all times and things like that. So then we get to J.J. Abrams' Star Trek from 2009. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid, not only a fresh reboot to try to bring in the new cast, the younger versions of the original crew, but also a way of trying to continue the events of the other movies by having the older Spock. And so I think this was how to me, I think this was a proper way to do a whole reboot, the way it was done right and stuff. And it really did kickstart a good trilogy that I actually really enjoyed. And I still need to own the other two that they did as well. So, and then we go into now. Let me find it here. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. Now, what we got left over here is we got the Star Wars Clone Wars movie that was released in theaters, which, I'll be honest, out of the theatrical films I've seen, this is probably my least favorite of the entire franchise. Now, I know that this was meant to be basically a lead-in to the TV series, and it does work in that regard, but as a film, I just feel like it just wasn't really it wasn't really interesting, and I didn't really feel it was that much like a good Star Wars movie on its own. So then we get to Star Wars: The Force Awakens. To me, I thought it was a great way of revitalizing the franchise again, continuing with the old ones, and starting fresh. So we got Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which, controversial one, I know. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. I'm one of the few that actually really love it. I thought it was, a great solid follow-up, and I thought it was also a great way of expanding the franchise and everything. But to each your own. For those of you who don't like it, I understand. But I really enjoyed the movie. Then we got to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. We'll admit that it does have its flaws, and I understand people hate it or people like it, depending on who you ask. I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect, it's not great, it's just very good for me. I think it was I thought it was a great conclusion to the entire franchise, but that's just me, and I don't get me wrong, I still love the original films to death, and I will always admit the original films will always be superior. I'm just saying that I still enjoy the newer films. I'm just trying to I'm just saying I enjoy the newer ones. So then we get to The Strangers. Very good throwback to the Halloween era of slasher films. I don't have the second one, but I heard it wasn't that good, so I just have the first one. I'll eventually check out the second one when I eventually. And we got another J.J. Abrams film, Super 8. One of my other favorite movies of 2011 that I enjoyed quite well, and I thought it really worked. It was pretty good. And we get to a fun hacker type of heist movie called Swordfish, which I thought was pretty fun. And you get to see Hugh Jackman in an early role, and John Travolta playing the villain and everything, and You know, I thought it was a really solid flick, and it's this day it's definitely kind of outdated with some of its technology and that they use and stuff in some scenes, but it still I think it has a lot of fun. So then we get to the first Thor, which I'll be honest, out of all the other films, I think I'd prefer over the other two a little more over this one. Even though there's things I prefer over in the first one over the second one in some cases, but the first Thor I thought was a good starter. It was still good. It's just that it wasn't up to speed as much as where the MCU was going yet. So, but I thought it was pretty solid. Then you have Taken 2, which, yeah, it was kind of a step down from the first one. It wasn't great. I thought it was just I thought it was just decent, but it definitely was, you know, a step down from the first one as far as, like, you know, storyline and being able to really put in a lot of this, put more of the stakes in as much as they could with it. It had potential to be great with a third one following up with it, but don't own that third one. If I, again, like I said with the other movies that I don't own in my collections, as far as as me not liking the films, if I really wanted to have it on my collection, I'll probably own it someday. But for now, I don't own it. So then we got the first Ted, which was really one of the best comedies I saw in 2012, and I actually enjoy Seth MacFarlane, and I enjoy, you know, a lot of his stuff. When I'm not really like the biggest fan of like the current Family Guy, but I liked a lot of his older stuff with Family Guy and stuff. And I haven't seen the second one yet, but I highly enjoyed the first one. And then we got Terror Train, which was, I think it was a pretty good. I thought it was a solid slasher film that the killer basically takes ways of using different costumes to kill his victims in, and or to kill their victims in. And so I thought it was a pretty unique approach with it. Then we get to Tower Heist, which was up until I think what was it? Up until My Name is Dolomite is My Name was the last like good Eddie Murphy movie that I actually liked, and I thought it was a good welcome return for him in his usual thing, his usual comedy form. And I thought him and the rest of the cast were all had great chemistry together. And I thought it was a very fun, you know, heist flick. So then you got the first Transporter. The best of the franchise for me, and definitely the movie that put Jason Statham on the map for sure. Then you got the second Transporter, which was alright. It had some good action. It had some interesting things going with its story and stuff that I kind of got into, and not great, but you know, it was still, I thought, pretty good. And then you got the third one, which was quite a step down, but I mean, other than Jason Statham and, you know, some aspects to other than his performance, that's really about the only thing I really like recommend with the movie, because it's quite a step down, especially with how they take the action, the way it's filmed in this one. So don't really recommend the third one, but I own it for as part of the series, you know. Then we got Trick or Treat, which was one of my all-time favorite holiday horror films of all time, and I watch this every Halloween. So this is definitely a film that I've always appreciated over the years, and I would love to see the director do a sequel. Then we get 999, which is a great I thought it was a pretty good heist movie. It doesn't have like quite as like the range of say like Heat or something, because they try to dive in so many characters, but they're kind of, you know, not really handled, like they're not really given like enough time to do certain things. But for the most part, I like the way that they, you know, went along with the way that there's a lot of corruptness going on and the way the heist goes down and everything. So there's some good things to the movie, to the story that I enjoyed, but they could have like maybe done a whole lot more with, but it still, I thought, really worked. Then we get the remake of True Grit from the Coen brothers, which I'll be honest, I still to this day haven't seen. I still have yet to actually fully watch this one, so I will hopefully watch this I'll definitely be watching this in the future when I get a chance to. Then we get to Underworld Awakening, which it's definitely a step up compared to Rise of Lycans. It's not quite as good, I don't think, as the first one was, but it's about what I expected from the film, and I thought it wasn't too bad, so, yeah. Then we get to Unleash, which is one of my favorite Jet Li films, and one of the most of his like finest hours as far as like brutal. and also very emotional stories that they take with them, and I really highly enjoyed this one. Then we get to, well, I don't have the full cover because this was actually given to me. Victor Crawley, the fourth film in the Hatchet franchise, and I haven't seen. I had the first one on DVD, but I need to get 2 and 3. I don't own the 2 and 3 yet, but I've seen the first and this one, and the fourth one, from what I've seen compared to the first one, it's it's a step down compared to the first one, but I thought it was still fun in some aspects, especially with the whole kind of meta angle that they kind of take with it and stuff. So then we get to William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. To me, my preferred version, my preferred go-to as far as like Shakespeare adaptations, and I'm kind of like one of the few that don't mind modern Shakespeare movies, and this is one of those where I don't mind it being in modern times, and I thought it was a very solid flick. So then we get to Willow, which I'll be honest, I haven't seen this since I was a kid, so there's a lot of catching up to do when it comes to movies that I haven't seen since I was a child. But I remember watching it growing up. It was definitely one that I highly enjoyed, and I remember have fond memories of, especially with my parents renting it from Blockbuster. So, and then we also got The Wolfman, which I'll be admit wasn't a bad remake. I actually thought it was pretty decent. It's something I do watch on Halloween. I still prefer the original Wolfman, but I still thought that if they would have went the approach like this, where they kept it in that more gothic setting, and they went with the whole cinematic universe for the Universal franchise, the Universal monsters, I think that it probably would have been interesting to see them do more of that, instead of what we have nowadays. So, but I still think that it wasn't. I still thought it was a decent remake, and I don't mind it too much. So, and then we got one of my other favorites of 2013. The Wolf of Wall Street, which is probably one of my favorite physical comedy performances of Leo DiCaprio, because that scene alone where he's on Quaaludes and he's basically leaving his slowly moving and trying to get to his Lamborghini, I thought was just hilarious, and the movie is just a blast. And once again, another a film from Scorsese that just I can't get enough of it. It's so great. Then we got Wonder Woman, which I actually admit was actually a great step from them, really going into taking DCU back to where it should be, because I think that if DC wanted to do more of their extended universe and just focus on more of the solo films, I think that they really it's more of their go-to as far as like keeping things more focused, because if they're trying to just not really pay too much attention as far as the whole crossover films and stuff, and just pay attention to these movies, I think that if they eventually build up to a better like crossover in the future with it, it probably would make the story the universe probably a lot better, and try to flesh it out better. But I still highly enjoyed Wonder Woman a lot, and I am really excited for. I am definitely looking forward to Wonder Woman 84. So, and then we got the X-Men franchise, X-Men First Class, a good prequel showing the origin story of how they started the X-Men with Xavier and all them. It has some retconning when looking back on it compared to when looking at some stuff nowadays, but with the other films. But I still thought it was the better origin film than we get to the next one, which of course X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is my least favorite of the whole franchise. It's a film I have just for collector purposes, and it's got some moments that aren't too bad, but it's a wasted opportunity that they really could have done a lot better with. I'm glad we got the other two that fixed the issues, because this movie was a pretty bad start to try to go with Wolverine on its own. Then we get the original, the X-Men, the first one. Still to this day, I think holds up. It basically changed how we see Marvel movies super movies back then, because we were starting to get more of like multiple characters in one type of movie that they focus on. I thought it was a pretty solid starter for it. Then we got X2, which to this day, out of the main X-Men films, I think this is definitely my most favorite of the entire X-Men movies, just the regular X-Men. and to me, I think still holds up, especially with how they were able to cram so many characters in and give them a lot of good depth and flesh them out pretty good with it, and the way that the story progressed with it. And then we get to the one that's pretty much the black sheep of the franchise, the X-Men: The Last Stand, which had potential, but with the whole rush production and everything, and not getting Bryan Singer on board because he had to do Superman Returns and having to get Brett Ratner involved, it just shows this movie was kind of having a tough execution, and there are some ideas that I still prefer way over Dark Phoenix, and I prefer this way over Dark Phoenix, but even to this day, I still think that this movie could have been a whole lot better than what we got. So now I don't own the rest of the films of the X-Men franchise, so there's some that I'm still missing: Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, and so on. So there's some that I still need to own eventually, but I'll get to them when I can. And then the last one we get is Star Trek: The Next Generation, Best of Both Worlds, which is the two-parter episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which was a great episode, a great story arc with that series, and I really enjoyed it. So, well, that's all my collection I have for my Blu-rays. I'm going to get some eventually in the future down the line to do some more collecting, but I just wanted to, show you guys what I own so far as Blu-rays over the years, and I thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll have some more stuff coming up on soon with more reviews coming up, and we'll keep y'all posted for more things coming up our channel. So stay safe and take care, and I'll see you guys here in our next review. We'll see you later.